Yes, good afternoon. My name's Richard Scaife. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Yovo. We're the world's first tokenized mobile network. And we come with a big USP. We pay you to use your mobile phone rather than you pay us. Hands up who has played Pokemon Go? Who in the audience? Hands up who's still playing Pokemon Go? Great attention. Okay. I think that is a sort of a great use case in terms of what could have actually happened if Pokemon Go had lived on the blockchain. Because if all of the effort that was invested was actually transferable and liquid, then I think there probably would have been more people in this room would have actually kept their hands up and would have still been playing Pokemon Go right now. So I think that's probably quite a nice way of sort of segueing into the panel and sort of talking really about the difference between cryptocurrencies and crypto assets. Because really, I mean, a crypto asset, we talked about it earlier, is something that ultimately you could buy, but you could also work towards as well. So where do you kind of see sort of crypto assets right now, and what's sort of going to kind of evolve in terms of the sort of the ownership of these?
So from my point of view, I think the Pokemon Go example is really, really good, because imagine you're playing Pokemon Go, but actually there was a financial imperative, or financial incentive, let's say. A financial incentive. So when you were collecting stuff and you were doing this, there were bits that you could be trading with other people, which in essence gave you real money, or money you could use across multiple games, or maybe had an impact on other games. And so for me, it's about taking what we call crypto economic principles and actually pushing them into game economics. And trying to create value that goes beyond just that pure game. So I think it's that economic principle that will change.
Simon?
Yeah, I think that, is this working? I think that, yeah, the reward model and the idea that you can keep your token and take it around with you, and it itself will attract value is obviously a major incentive for any game user. And I also think that the blockchain and tokenization is great for the online gambling or online betting sector, or any sort of pay-to-play games where you're looking for a fair outcome, and we want to know that you're being treated fairly. So there's transparency on the blockchain for the users.
Also, question for you actually is going back to a point that Alex was sort of talking about earlier. Now, we live in a world where, of course, we are building up digital assets. They could be playlists on Spotify. They could be our Amazon book collection. They could be our Google Play games collection. And at the start of every one of those things was a big global brand. So, you know, we've started to see people like Signal come into the market in terms of their Telegram. Telegram are going to do a $2 billion ICO, and everybody's got slightly sort of different views on that, which is great. Mark Zuckerberg was talking about decentralization and the importance of this. Could we see a Facebook coin coming out this year, in your view?
Maybe not this year, but I definitely think next year will come. I also think that the reason why we see the whole slide now in gaming is definitely because if normal gaming or normal gaming companies, if you don't improve your business, then definitely you will compete against the blockchain version of your own business. Yeah. So I definitely think, you know, we see a massive amount of old companies trying to fit into this whole blockchain thing. So yeah. And
one of the sort of challenges I think that anybody who wants to play in the kind of the walled gardens of Amazon and Google and Apple is ultimately their own sort of rules. And how you're going to work in that sort of ecosystem. So they're not embracing the blockchain. They don't have visible blockchain strategies. There was huge news stories because apparently Amazon had bought some domain names, which were implying that potentially they could be getting involved with blockchain. But how are you finding it as a business to sort of work around? Are you working around?
Yeah, definitely we're working around because we have to, you know, because we are in, we have to apply to Apple's rules. So definitely we have to work ourselves around that whole issue with the whole in-game app game currencies and all that. So it's really hard for us to, because we want to like do a lot of things, but we are still like restricted in so many ways. So
what are those restrictions?
Definitely that we want to try and do our guns also in the game, but in app-in purchase. But we have to separate them, from actually the trading platform with the tokens, and then again in the app itself. So yeah, too many restrictions if you ask me.
So leading on to that, for you, Simon, you're involved in a business which is you spend a lot of time in the mobile space. Mobile has yet to really sort of fully get its head around the blockchain, and I think a lot of that is a reflection of who are the ultimate kind of mobile gatekeepers. Well, where do you see kind of mobile and the blockchain going?
Yeah, so interestingly, I've launched my own cryptocurrency called Power Token, and we may well be investigated, or I'm sure that people at Facebook are looking hard at us, because what we're doing with Power Token is we're using that massive user base that they've created over the last 10 years or so, and we're enabling their users to come out of Facebook and onto the blockchain, and we're making it easy for them. And so I think you're right. I think that very soon they're going to wake up to this fact and create their own token. But in the meantime, we're enabling any Facebook user or any Twitter user or anybody on social media to own and hold a cryptocurrency, and we're making it easy for them. And I think that's the point. I think this will disintermediate and decentralise the powers that be.
Okay, so I'm going to dive into my background. Actually, I spent a little bit of time in the venture world, and obviously being out there on both sides of the table raising money from VCs. There's clearly no better time to be raising money if you have the word blockchain in your business. I think there was a company yesterday, I saw in the Evening Standard, they changed their name and they doubled their share price on the back of having it in their company name. So, I mean, how do you value a company and a business in this space when you start to break it out into kind of almost different parts of their asset group? I mean, you touched on Alex in terms of, potentially you could have businesses where the platform dies, but the assets live on. So, what becomes part of an exit strategy for a business? Simon, listen.
Well, I think that brings on the question: are you a security token or are you a utility token? And
what is a security token and a utility token in your mind?
I'm not aware of any security tokens yet, but a security token would be a quasi share or equity, and there would be some asset backing the token, and it would infer that the token holder could receive dividends or some sort of profit share from the underlying business model. Whereas the utility tokens that 99% of the tokens on the market today have no asset backing and have no ability.
Shouldn't have any ability.
Yeah, infer no profit share. But I think that that's why we're disrupting the IPO market and the capital raising market. But I think that there are moves in effect which in Gibraltar, for example, where they are creating a tokenized security exchange, and so people will be able to launch security tokens in a regulated environment and not get put into prison by the regulators.
I'm going to flip this one over actually just to Morten actually. So you raised obviously your money through an ICO. Did you take any equity capital? Did you bootstrap into that journey? You don't have to go quantums, but just into, it's a leading question, but I'm going to ask you something next.
Try and ask me again.
So did you, pre-doing your ICO,
Yeah.
did you go out and raise money? Did you raise?
Yeah.
So you raised some equity
Yeah,
capital?
exactly.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you've done your ICO. It's a size of a sort of a kind of a medium Series A in terms of the kind of the quantum that's been involved. You have an asset which is sitting there in the background, which is your armory. You decide, having had 6 months of great traction on the App Store, that you want to go and have a conversation with the best games venture capital firm in the world. What do you think that conversation is going to look like? Do you think they're going to be able to get their head around the fact that actually what you also have is not just the business around its daily active users, its average revenue per user, but you actually have this asset base, which is a crypto asset base, which actually people are. How would you sell that to me if I was the?
Yeah, that's the problem, because many of the people you talk to actually doesn't understand it. So it's already there. We have a problem because, when we were in the beginning, when we didn't thought about doing an ICO, we actually went to some banks, and the bank man just sat there and said, best idea ever. Really loved it, but I can't lend you the money because I simply don't. I don't understand how I can actually explain it to the guy who actually has to prove the loan. So I was just like, okay, that'll be hard. So for me, it's just a matter of the whole popularity of the game would actually convince people eventually, because I'm absolutely sure that many of the guys or the girls or women, who has to approve this doesn't have a clue, to be honest, because it's really hard to understand. So to be honest, I wouldn't know how to explain it because they wouldn't understand it. So yeah.
So I mean, as we move really kind of to Web 3.0 and the internet of money, which is really the kind of the tokenization of everything, millions of different types of tokens, millions of tokens. Where do you think we're going to end up, Simon, in terms of the world that we are going to live in?
I think there's in the same way we had the internet boom, there will be millions of tokens created, but not all of them will be successful. Some of the quasi-security tokens that are classed as utility tokens now will become security tokens, or they'll get taken off market because they are securities and they're not regulated. And some of the utility tokens, which are, value is created with these utility tokens because people are buying into the future of the ecosystem that they're creating, and there's demand, apparent demand for this ecosystem that's been created. And speculators are suggesting, I can see the growth in this model, I believe that people will buy into it, and I'm going to get ahead of the curve and buy now. So that's creating demand. But some of them are going to be right, some of them are going to be wrong. So there may be millions created over the next 3 to 5 years, but it will get whittled down to a few survivors in the next 20 years.
Yeah, I totally agree on that one, and I definitely think that some of the security tokens we will see actually gives ratings to some of the tokens which are out there, the coins, saying that this is actually valid. It's just not pump and dump, so this actually has something that is worth it, but maybe it's just like being hidden, because right now, last time I checked, was like 2,400 coins at least. I think 2,400 on CoinMarketCap alone, and they have also raised a lot too. So you have to have like minimum 100,000 actually in daily active trading in order to be accepted at the CoinMarketCap. So it's really hard. So definitely, I think we will see our tokens down the line will have some kind of rating, because you need to have it, to be honest. So.
And wasn't there some provider that said they're now going to rate cryptocurrencies?
Yeah.
Which I'm very dubious about, because it creates all manner of dodgy incentives to rate things based on your holdings. Let's say, or do some trading, and this is bound to happen because
we are talking about
investment banks, aren't we?
Yeah, now we get to them as well. I think one of the interesting things that's come up, and it relates actually to the question I was asked about, what if the game developer stops supporting your property, I have much less of an issue with that because I think it's not that different to when Kickstarters fail or games turn themselves off. It is an issue though if you need to you've done a cryptocurrency sale, and either one, you stop supporting the currency, or you need to pivot your company. Because a cryptocurrency sale, if you've not really thought it out, it can prevent you from pivoting. And all of these are startups, almost all of them are startups. It's maybe slightly different for some game companies, but you need to have the opportunity to change your model, to change your token model, to change how your token works, to change your game economies, or to pivot the way the company works. But meanwhile, you've got all these people who you're responsible for, and I don't think it's going to end very well for a lot of companies, and I don't know what the result's going to be.
Yeah, I agree on that one, and that's why I think, especially in Reality Clash, we're trying to build the platform where you can actually, again, even though if we close down eventually, you can still take the weapon and play it in every other game. And you know, for me that's a huge difference, because for me that's security, because I never know what will happen in the future, but definitely I want to, you know, make sure that the people who support us actually has, you know, a possibility actually to use the weapon down the line, and also trade, because I definitely think that we will see like a standard for these, so I can actually take my gun and say, now I found this cool game, I actually want to take my whole player profile. That's at least what we are trying to do. My whole player profile actually, and switch it into the other game we have on our platform. So, or you can sell your whole player profile, not only your weapon, but actually if you build it up, because we know all the illegal trading that's been doing on Steam, you know. So that's why I'm trying to avoid that, because actually now it's transparent, and you know, you're not exploiting very poor prisoners in Chinese prisons and forcing them to play World of Warcraft and just trade their whole player profile afterwards. So this would be transparent, I think so. That's for me.
So I just want to add one extra point to that. This again relates mostly if you're doing a cryptocurrency sale, but it does affect other things too. What you should be doing, and there may be some legal reasons for doing this as well, is trying to incentivize other uses of your currency or your items, especially currency if you sold your currency. If you can create bounties or create incentives to have your community or other game developers use it in some way, then of course it lessens the problem of if you need to pivot or something happens to you or your game is not successful. So if you can try to incentivize other games to do things too, or to share those assets, I think that's something that really should be strongly considered. The more centralized something is, the more problem I have with it.
I mean, I think one of my sort of common things I hear, even in pubs and supermarkets these days, is I don't do an ICO because it's really easy. I don't have to deal with investors. I mean, maybe you can sort of talk through what your experience has been in terms of the difference, sort of almost in the community, because you've got a community of game players. And they come with their idiosyncrasies, and you have a community of crypto buyers who certainly come with their idiosyncrasies.
Yeah, just to, again, the whole community, I think, I was surprised, like Tony said, I was really surprised that nobody asked for business plan, nobody asked for that, and it was just like, okay, ICOs are hot right now, so just, you know, and again, the game is cool, but again, it could be a scam, but everybody was just buying in, so it was quite surprising to see, but of course we knew what we were doing, but you know, I can definitely see in the whole market right now when you look at ICOs, now you can see that this one doesn't look so good, but the whole community, I was surprised, really backing up. You know, I'm Danish now, so for me, you know, it's the whole, as a Viking, you know, I'm used to plunder and rage, the whole, you know, so now I had to do it like digital, because again, it's illegal now apparently. So for me, the whole community was very important for me, and we spent a lot of time trying to build up that whole community part. But they are also demanding, I would say, from when you are finished with the ICO until you actually launch the thing. You know, there's definitely a gap between where you need to really have a plan. How do you maintain that? We are doing developer diaries. We are trying to, you know, show you we're out here, you know, like promoting ourselves. But it's really hard actually to satisfy them, because they're just like, I want to see this coin going up so I can actually sell it. Okay, but why? You know, because that's for me not why you should invest in the coin. You should invest in the coin because you actually can see there's a purpose in the game, and later on also, you know, how can you use this cross-platform, you know, other games, convert your RCCs maybe into a more popular game on the same platform, saying that now it's just like, because this is more popular than RCC right now, but then it's just like a conversion rate, and then you have that kind of currency in the other game. So that's where I've, you know, definitely will spend some time.
So you talked there actually about sort of the transparency, the
Yeah.
developer diaries, and I think transparency and trust is obviously a fundamental part of the blockchain, but not necessarily a fundamental part of companies who are operating
No.
in the blockchain. So what other sort of initiatives would you encourage people to do in terms of building that transparency and trust?
Definitely just be honest about also the obstacles that you meet, because everybody is trying to do this like, pink sky, everything's good, and back on track and all that. And if you meet obstacles, definitely just tell it to your community, because sometimes you actually get something back from the community saying that, have you thought about this and this and this and this and this? So especially because, again, as the Danish part, I have a very, very good relationship with the Danish community in crypto, and they have been, like really supportive and really some brainy men and women between, So I've used them a lot just to try to say, what do you think about that? Are we good enough? And from the marketing perspective, we're good enough for to be transparent in how the whole economy in our game is. And they have been really helpful. So but again, because you are open, you are they can call me 24/7. They can write me on Facebook. Being invited for coffee just to talk about the game and how the whole blockchain and all that. So I think it's just like being honest about where you are in the whole process.
So I'm going to pose a similar sort of question to Simon. Transparency and trust, very important, but you're also stepping into a huge kind of regulatory minefield as well at the same time. What things have you discovered on your journey in terms of the kind of the challenges, things that you didn't anticipate from the kind of the normal business world, which was highly apparent in the crypto business world?
So I've listed a company on the London Stock Exchange, on the AIM market, so I understand the regulation that exists for equities and the market as we know them. Actually, to be honest, crypto is still unregulated. So you could have a gung-ho attitude and just carry on and think that you'll get away with it, but my opinion is that the regulators, the SEC, the FCA, etc., will consider these utility tokens to be securities because they do infer profit share in most cases. And therefore, you should, if you are going to do an ICO, you should do it from a standpoint where you do it as if you are regulated, and then at a later date, if the market does become regulated, you should be okay. And I just wanted to pick up on the point where you were talking about the short-term attitude of the investors. So, the nature of the crowd sale is that it's retail, small, generally small investors. And so one of the downsides, I think, of that investment model or capital raising is that you're not going to get a long-term investor who's going to ride with you and truly understand your business and try and help you in the good times and the bad times.
Alex, to pick that for you.
Yeah, I was just going to say about the topic of fundraising again. Something that sort of relates to the regulatory side is that we've been working a lot with some guys in the US and seeing how the SEC deals with these things and trying to work very, very closely with them to be prepared for what's going to change in the future and to be as compliant now as we can.
Would you say they're hostile to ICOs?
No, not at all. There's no very few of the authorities that are hostile. What they're concerned about is pump and dumps, fraud. Basically, ways in where especially their public, like the American people, where they think they might lose money and where essentially what's happening is it's a security in all but name. But unfortunately, the problem is that there's at least in the US, it's different in some countries, it's basically a grey area.
Yeah.
So people talk about certain types of tests, like one is the Howey test that you can perform, but actually nothing is definitive. You will not get a definitive answer from any lawyer anywhere in the world right now, in most circumstances.
So they'll charge you a healthy premium.
They'll charge you a healthy premium for saying this may be true, but it might not be, and we can't be responsible for business. So all you can do is you can, as long as you go on the side of being as compliant as you can be, and you're trying to do the right thing, maybe keep a proportion of your funding aside. If you get fined, you will be okay. If you start crossing to the other side and just going, we don't care, not only are you going to have potential problems with regulators, but you might have problems even getting traded on any exchanges, because they are starting to care about this and they want a legal opinion in some cases now.
Yeah, I mean,
it's changing rapidly.
I think what I've certainly heard from kind of various people in the legal industries is that regulators are going to look for the kind of the weakest points, and things like exchanges are the weakest point for them to sort of go at. And ultimately, we'll touch on this. If you have a crypto asset as it currently stands, or a cryptocurrency, if you're not an exchange, it's a dud, really, isn't it?
Yeah, although I think that's going to change, because at the moment, exchanges are where you can convert one currency to another, and currently you've got two types of exchange, I would say, with a third that's up and coming. One type you can actually put in your sterling or your dollars and convert that to Bitcoin or Ether or one or two other currencies. The next type of exchange is you can convert from one cryptocurrency to another, but they never deal in US dollars or pounds. You don't send money to their bank account, you can't take your money out. They're just for converting one currency to another. And those are the ones that are really being targeted now by regulators to try and get them stricter. But the regulators are behind the technology. The nice thing about this technology is we can start changing things. So we have in progress, and some active ones, what we have are called decentralized exchanges. What that means is there doesn't have to be a company behind them at all. Just like tokens can be sat living on a blockchain with no one controlling them, we can have exchanges that are sat on blockchains with no one controlling them. In which case, you can trade anything for anything, and any currencies that come out, game currencies, you can go to a game currency exchange website or the decentralized equivalent and trade your game currencies. And my opinion is that we're probably going to see a lot more happening in terms of decentralized exchanges this year, and certainly towards the end of this year. Because game currencies and game items are a really good example. I want to be able to trade them. To be honest, they suit going into an environment that is designed around games. I want to see a game decentralized exchange for items and currency. It's inevitable, it will happen.
And why would you want to go through all the whole KYC and anti-ML procedures and identify yourself? The whole point of having a cryptocurrency, so you don't have to do that.
Most important, what you're saying there is, at the moment when you're trading, if any of you trade, you have to go and show your passport or driver's license, your identity theft. Who knows what
you pay your taxes properly.
Yeah. But who are trading cryptos? Who are the first instance? Who's investing in games through Kickstarter? It's teenagers and 20-somethings. Teenagers are trading crypto. Teenagers buy game items. Teenagers are playing esports and watching esports. Teenagers buy digital merchandise. People in their 20s are investing through Kickstarter type campaigns. They're investing in cryptocurrencies. They're trading cryptocurrencies. So all of this stuff is happening with the new up and coming people with money. This is the new normal. So all those people that got used to the stock market, this is how the stock market would work. If the stock market was created in the social media generation, this is how it would be. It would be 50,000 people on Telegram sending memes and slagging people off. That's what it is. Yeah. That's how the stock market would be if people designed it now. And so the cryptocurrency world is essentially the stock market but for the social media generation.
So let's just pause you there, because actually you picked up on a really good point. You talked about the generation who are kind of really getting into crypto, and I've been fascinated just how broad it is. You can sit down with people who are 70s and they've got a clear grip on it, and you've got people who are 17. But it is actually a very, very slim sort of minority of people. I would say Bitcoin awareness is really high. Most people have no idea really what it is. Some of them sit on panels like this all day talking about it, but that's a different matter. But the actual reality of consumer awareness and consumer adoption is tiny. And what do you think is going to be the real big kicker which moves cryptocurrency from being this exclusive little club to being something that everybody is using day to day? What would be your prediction?
Right, I'm going to say one thing to that. I disagree. I only disagree in one way though, and that's that recently, because so much money has got involved, so many people have started to work out it. I've got my hair cut the other day. I said I'd do something with Bitcoin. The hairdresser got out of his wallet a piece of paper, and on that piece of paper was written Coinbase, GDAX, and Binance. They're all trading exchanges. So actually, I think until recently, what you said was completely true. Now I think because of money, because people are like, how do I make money? Basically, that's what's got people interested.
You think we've actually hit kind of mainstream adoption? It's really starting to happen.
I think we've touched on it, but it's too hard for people to do.
Right.
So
hence why the Coinbases of this world are incredible. A centralised proposition is actually incredibly.
So there's actually two answers. One, it has to be easy to do, and it has to be basically I can go to my bank and I can choose. I can have a Bitcoin account, and that's it.
So kind of like what Ripple, so Ripple are doing in what it's completely from my head now. Revolut.
Yeah, well, Revolut are going there. It just has to be so easy to use, and it has to be. I shouldn't have to worry about all the security stuff. I should just know I'm covered and I'm insured, and it just has to be easy. The second thing is, which is relevant for everyone in this room, games are probably the best way I can think of, except possibly social networks and chat channels, of getting people to use cryptocurrency or crypto property, because it's so consumer friendly, and we control the playback medium in games, so we can make it as friendly as existing games already do with inventories and stores and merchandise. And to me, that is the best way. Games have always been that.
Conscious of time, we've got about 1 minute, so 30 seconds from each of you. In terms of mass market consumption, adoption.
Go to powertoken.com, pick up your free currency. We're making it incredibly easy for you to be a newcomer to the cryptocurrency market. You can just claim your POW free and start sending it to your friends.
And finally, from you, Morten.
No, I think not only cryptocurrency, but just blockchain and crypto needs to be separated, because all the media are just only talking about cryptocurrency right now. And I think there's so many great blockchain ideas out there. But again, it starts with media. If media doesn't understand what crypto and blockchain is, then it's really a struggle. No, but I definitely think within the next 3 years,
I think some regulators and banks don't understand the difference.
No, but in Denmark, actually, we have no taxes on the Bitcoin earnings or in crypto earnings, actually. So
we're
no, but I definitely think that we will see when we reach 1% total market cap in cryptocurrency, I definitely think we will see mass adoption.
Truly insightful. Thank you very much, Morten, Simon, and Alex. Big round of applause. Thank you.